Parents' Rights in Special Education by Dr. Tim Walker, Special Education Department Coordinator for Shawnee Mission South High School. So first off, our objectives: establish what it means to be a parent for educational purposes. So what are the obligations, expectations, and how to participate in the meetings. Specify the role of the school. So you have the local education agency, general education teacher, special education teacher, and then related services. Outline the processes and laws which are followed. So evaluation, notice of meeting, prior written notice, FAPE, and LRE. So first off, what is a parent? So according to Kansas State Department of Education, the following people may be in the role of educational decision maker for students. So the educational decision maker is that person who is able to make decisions based on the education of the child. So first and foremost is the biological parents. Whether divorced or not, biological parents are always the priority and should be notified of all actions in and around their student. Adoptive parents, so that would be a finalized adoption. When it's not finalized, there's typically an appointed state advocate as well, but adoptive parents would be next. Any person acting as a parent, so that could be a step-parent, grandparent, or other relative or person where the student resides. That person also has to have been given educational decision rights by the parent or noted somehow. Appointed state advocate, so that would be someone appointed by the state to advocate for the student, and then foster parents as well, if they're appointed as well by the state. So they also have to be appointed by the state in order to be that educational decision maker for the students. In special education, I've had instances where the parents have been in a foster role. There have been foster parents, but I'm still working with the biological parents around the creation and implementation of the IEP. So what role does the parent play in special education? So they're a member of the school team in making the educational plan. They provide consent for services, changes, and testing. Their expectations as far as what the parent does: attend meetings, interact with teachers, ensure attendance of the student, participation. I think this is key. They should be able to bring problems and solutions to the IEP meeting, support the student in their choices, work with the school team to transition the student toward their academic and post-secondary goals. That is the whole point of special education. Special education team. So there's a local education agency also called the LEA. It is the school district. There's local education agents then, which are principals and other district or building level appointees, will represent the school as that LEA. They're responsible for the building, and special education laws are followed. They're also responsible for guaranteeing the meetings held correctly and other processes that are in place. General education teacher, that's any teacher of the student who teaches a regular or typical subject taken by all students. So that could be their math teacher, it could be their music teacher. Special education teacher is the teacher who is responsible for writing and carrying out special education plan. They coordinate with parents, teachers, and the LEA. And then you have also related services, which could be accessed or needed by a student. So there's specialized teachers working with speech, occupational, physical, music, art, deaf and hard of hearing, visually impaired, any type of specialized services that the student would need. So there's lots of different things that are available to the student for that aspect. The process for special education. So the first thing, I think this is always just to kind of clarify something. So first, there's a concern is raised regarding the student's performance, either exceeding or less than their age group classmates. So this can be brought up by the parent or the school. So then there's always a permission to evaluate is asked for and granted. So the school then is saying, hey, we need to evaluate, and this is what we're asking for. So the evaluation occurs. There's a meeting to determine eligibility for the student, so the student either meets the criteria or does not. The education team agrees to the evaluation results. Hopefully everybody agrees. If they're found eligible, then we create an individual education plan, and then we meet annually to revise that plan. So rights of the parents in this process. So for the evaluation, the school must state the concern, what is being assessed and how it will be assessed, and who will be involved. Written consent must be provided 15 days after the evaluation is requested. So whether the parent or the student requests that evaluation, the school is obligated to provide the actual written consent in 15 days after. There are 60 school days to complete the assessment. So that is actually a fairly long time. People don't realize how long that is, but that's 12 school weeks, so almost a quarter of the school year to complete this assessment. Then after that, typically there's a prior written notice. This is a document which outlines the changes being proposed to the education plan. These changes do not always require consent, but for the most of the time, I think best practice is to get consent. But it outlines what the proposed changes are, why they are being proposed or refused for that matter, what was used to make the decision, so what tools or assessments were used, other options considered by the agency or by the school district, and then any other relevant factors. And the parent may agree or disagree with the proposed changes. That is your right as a parent. There's the notice of meeting. This is a notification of a meeting to make changes to the plan or review the results of an evaluation. It must be given 10 calendar days prior to the meeting. Must be a written document approved by the LEA. So in Shawnee Mission, we have an approved document that we have adopted that counts as our written notice of meeting. Every district has their own, but it must be that document that is sent to the parent or provided to the parent. It needs to be communicated to the educational decision maker in at least 2 methods. So we can email that document to you, we can mail that document to you, we can send it home with your child. Those are like 3 good forms. A phone call does not count as a written notice. It just counts as a point of contact. But it also outlines the purpose of the meeting. I think the one thing that parents need to understand that is key is FAPE. That is the idea that is the backbone for special education and what it means for your students. So from the Kansas State Department of Education, FAPE, or Free Appropriate Public Education, is provided at public expense, under public supervision and direction, and without charge. So those are just the basic meeting the basic needs of your child. Meeting the standards of the state board, so whatever the state board of education dictates is appropriate public education. It's included appropriate preschool, elementary, and secondary education. Then it conforms with an individualized education program, IEP, or individualized education plan is sometimes what it's called as well. And there's this idea of least restrictive environment. So that's the guideline which dictates a student will be placed with typical peers unless learning is not achieved in the general education setting. So that is keeping a student with their peers at all times, unless they can't learn in that typical classroom or that space otherwise. So other items to note for parents and their rights. Parents are made aware of rights of transfer when their student is 16 or prior to their 17th birthday. So this means that the student will become their educational decision maker at the age of 18. It doesn't mean the parents are totally cut out of the picture. They're still invited to the IEP meeting, but they're not required to sign any of the documents. The parents may ask to hold a meeting at any time, especially for individualized education plans and IEPs. Those parents may request, I would like to have an IEP meeting. This is what I would like to address at the IEP meeting. And then as a school, we have to honor that request. As a parent, you can invite any person to the school meeting. This includes any educational advocates. If you have a grandparent, a nanny, a alternative service provider, or someone like that that you think would have input on that IEP meeting, you can invite them. All you have to do is just tell the school. And then parents can file complaints if they feel their students' needs are not being met or addressed. And this is something which does happen, and you can do that as a parent and file a complaint. You'll typically start with the principal first, and then it would work your way out from there. So hopefully this helps to clarify some of the rights that you have as a parent for your student in special education. Thank you so much, and the following are my references.